Yo, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Today is the day we learn guns like Marauda 2024 update. I've been learning and listening to his Casket VIP, and it's basically insane. And we want to get our guns to sound like this. And I'm realizing there's so much reverb involved. I just had to send you guys this update. So this is what it sounds like. Keep in mind, if you want this full project, it will be in my Patreon, so you can get all these sounds. Otherwise, follow along. There's extensive groups, lots of things going on here. This is what it sounds like. Then we have this one. We have multiple layers going on here. We're resampling the bass. We're using multiple reverbs. There's a lot of layers, but I want to make sure you guys follow and you guys understand that this is basically how we make, just one shot. First thing I want you to look at is the end of the signal flow. All these lows, this is my group where everything's in. This is being sent to a lows group, and this lows is turned down -3 decibels. Just so you know, right at the end of the signal flow, before we get to the master, -3 decibels, turning it down a little. On my master, we just have a clipper, and then we're measuring the loudness, measuring the width. Simple things here. With the actual bass creation group, we have here the drip tear guns. And then things that you're actually hearing are these three: transient guns and sub. This one is turned off, as you see here. The guns, this is the main sample. This is what I resampled. I turned on resampling here, hit record, and I soloed this group, which is the group where I made the guns. This group has a sub in it, but we're not using this sub. We're using a separate sub for the end result, which is right underneath here. This will be the final sub that you hear. We want to separate the sine wave, get it nice, fat, loud, clean, and then the guns will be separate as well. Having an EQ 8, cut it at 100, and giving it some simple compression to make it loud, saturation to make it loud, 4 decibels of drive, 44% on the multiband dynamics. Fab filter, Pro L, to make it loud, pumped at +4. And then we have a final reverb, 22%, using the kick verb convolution. And then we're measuring it. It's coming at about -4 LUFS, which is good. This tape stop is for effect in some of the later parts if you want to add tape stop effect. But that's not needed. So that's the resampled gun sample that you hear, which is coming from this pattern that we created in the gun group. So we'll create the pattern first, the rhythm, the speed with our layers, and then we'll resample it down here for the final result. We'll layer that gun with our sub. We'll also layer it with a transient layer. This is simply for the beginning of the sound. Adding some extra oomph for the attack, for the transient. And those three are the final gun. And with the drums. Hit him with a casket. Boom, boom, boom. You know what it is. You know. All right, so now we're going to get into actually making the main gun. The fun part about this is that you can be super creative. You don't have to take a lot of time. When I made mine, I kind of just threw samples in real quick, anything that I thought sounded cool. And then we also have some MIDI here as well. So these MIDIs are just throwing in more samples, but I'm using the samples. If I have this gun bass, you see here, let me go ahead and we have one gun bass and MIDI. Cutting the EQs, we have one reverb here. Next MIDI gun, Another bass one shot thrown in. If it says E, we're going to transpose it to our root note of the song, which is D. In this case, we're working in D minor. So anytime I throw in a sample, we're going to be transposing it and getting it to D, so that all of the notes will be hitting D. We have those two. Now, I don't know if you can tell yet, but there are effects on these. So there's multiple groups. So let's break it down. So if we open up the first group, it's the drip tear guns, right? We're going to work backwards. From here, this is where we have the main effects, which is disperser. We want to make sure these dispersers are set high and not low, so we can have a clean, lasery, phasey effect at the beginning of the transient. This makes a big difference. If you want to hear what it sounds like, the disperser's on and off, I can show you now. That's on, off. Now you may not be able to tell, so we're going to turn the loud rack off. Now disperser's on. Loud rack on. This loud rack consists of an OTT, saturator, OTT, saturator. You can see these are basically on the same settings. One's at 81% OTT, one's at 76% OTT. Saturator's at 5 decibels, next one's at 6 decibels. Very similar. We're just using those to make it loud, then the EQ8 boosting some frequencies. Loop compressor is compressing it. Utility, in case you want to turn it down, make it wider or mono, and then the JST clip is clipping it at the end at 0 and kind of pumping it, making it a little bit louder with the gain knob there. So this is the first set of processing on the main group. But when you open the group, we have another group, which is the mixology room. So this mixology room has a G clip, which is clipping everything at 5 decibels. It's really important that we turn up and squash the guns, the mid, basses, and a sub together. That's what we do. So you have guns, no bass, no sub, and then sub. Now this sub with the gun together. And then you see they're both grouped in a group where we're clipping them both together. If we turn the clipper off, on, that's really getting it heavy, making it grungy. Once again, we're clipping the sub with the basses together to get that sound. This is kind of like the Hull method that I teach in the previous Hull videos. You want to check that out. Keep in mind too, this sub down here is just from the SISTO sub video, my most recent one. That will be in the description as well. So if you want to check that out, you can see that. The sub, the only thing that we changed is adding a G clip to the sub to also make this fat. Without G clip. With G clip. That's 4 decibels of drive on that sub, so we're getting it super loud. And that's the end sub, remember? That's the one we use in the final result. Then this other sub that we're actually using with the guns is a different sub. So this one is just my clean Dripment sub. You can get any clean sine wave. Make sure it's going the same rhythm as your guns. Then you can squish both of those together with the G clip. Cool? So sub is separate from the guns. As we open up this group, you see all the audio samples for our guns. On the guns group, we have an EQ8 to cut all the sub out. Remember, we don't need any sub for the guns. We have a separate sub there. Then we have a reverb, convolver, convolution reverb. This time we dragged in one of the samples. One of these, and we just simply dragged it in to the reverb to make it look like this. That's why it says user TEAROUT bass 30%. We're using an audio sample to create a new convolution algorithm. So that's freaking awesome. Basically, new sounds, new spaces. Then after the reverb, we turn it up with a little bit of multiband dynamics at 33%. That's just giving it clean gain. Once again, that's the guns group here, which has all these. Really, you want to keep stacking until it sounds good, and you want to make sure that a couple of your individual tracks have reverb. You see this one is labeled verb. This one is also verb. So you have one reverb. This one does not. This one does not. This one has a corpus, no reverb, and it's wide. This one has a reverb. And then the other one does not have a reverb. I was real specific on how many reverbs I had because we don't want too much space. But we wanted to add some space in here and squish it with the G-clip. So that's what we did. We also added extra space on the group. So that's 3 total reverbs. And then if you go to the last guns, the last resampled, we have our final reverb. So that's 4 total convolution reverbs, which gives it the space that we need. If you listen to the Marauda songs, there's a lot of reverb, lots of space in those TEAROUT guns. That's what we're trying to recreate here, that space. Okay, so then you look at the first space I dragged in, it's at -9. We just cut the lows. This is just a bass 1 shot. I'll throw in a bass 1 shot. It's already being processed by the dispersers in the loud rack. And then I'll pitch it down to D to make sure it's in pitch correctly, and make sure you're always in complex so that you're pitching down the right way. Then we have to create a rhythm. This is the same rhythm that Marauda used in Casket, and he's not using regular timing. This is all triplet timing. If you look at the bottom right near the master, it says 116. That's what we're looking at here. And you can use command 1 and 2 on the keyboard to change your grid size. Command 3 will enter triplets. I'm at 1/8 triplets now. Now you see I'm changing my grid size, and these start to line up. This is the grid size here that we're looking at. So the choices that he made are cool, because usually if you get the triplets, maybe you would just fill up the triplets like that, you know? But he didn't. He really went fast and kind of spaced out his triplets. So look at this rhythm. Da 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 da. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 1 2 3. Very cool rhythmic, all triplets. And then if we get to this other section, we slow it down in triplets. This one's really cool. If you look here, you can change the grid size, start to line everything up. That's really cool. Keep in mind, this is just a 4-bar section. Now, when you find the rhythmic pattern that you want, then you start to layer your basses. So you get one bass like this, another one. Whenever you're picking out basses, try to get ones that are high frequency, ones that are mid, ones that are low. Try to combine all the frequency ranges so you can have a nice full stack. Make sure some of them have a good amount of reverb. This is 38%. Without this reverb, listen. So this reverb's doing a lot. These two are bass 1 shots. Then I start to look for transients. So like maybe percussive sounds or percussion like this. Or claps. These are not tonal. You don't need to tune these really. So you just throw stuff in, have fun. And as they start to layer together and get processed together, they start to create a new sound. Then you can add some more. So the reason I did this is I wanted some MIDI information for later when I added this transient here. So I wrote up the MIDI, made it match the rhythm of the audio up here. And then I dragged in a sample to the sampler, and we use this now to kind of make some more transient bassy sounds. And I'm really just layering until it sounds good to my ears. We had another gun this time, a gun bass. I used the Convolver gun again. And just so you know, this doesn't show a key. So if you need it to show the key, you can download this key finder by Ibrahim Shaf. And then you can just throw the bass in it. So like, let's say we got gun bass 45 right here. Then all you have to do is just drag it into this. And once you hit find keys, it'll tell you E flat minor. And then 2A is the Camelot scale. Then you can tune it accordingly. Right here, transposed, went down -2 from E flat minor. E flat minor is D sharp, by the way. So if we're at D sharp, we go down to D, then go, E flat minor would be E minor. So -2 would go from E to D sharp, and then D sharp to D. And then we're at our root note, which is where we want to be. Okay. Now that we have a couple of layers in the rhythmic pattern that we want, we turn down the ones that are too loud. We combine this with the sub. We then add an extra G clip to clip the sub and the basses together. That signal goes into these dispersers and a loud rack to make it loud. That then gets resampled here. So essentially you would create a new audio track, hit resampling, hit record, and then record your rhythm. Okay, then you have your rhythm here. You just duplicate it like that. We can listen to it now. That's the final result, but we need to add the EQ8 to take out the lows. You'll see in the one I have here, we have the EQ8 multiband dynamics. Saturator, Fab Pro L to make it loud. Another final reverb, and then we can measure how loud it is. There's no sub, so we add our separate sub, our final sub. Add some drums. And then you're good to go. Then you have your sound. Now you're having fun. This is how we get it done. If you guys need help with any TEAROUT guns, hit me up. Join the Discord. Join the Patreon. We have lots of tools, lots of tricks, lots of cool things for you guys to use. Otherwise, have a good day. Hit me up if you need a lesson. Stay fresh, my guys. Peace.